guys, tonight we're taking a journey back in time, way back, to the sun-baked lands of ancient Egypt. Imagine yourself, if you will, not on your comfy mattress, but stretched out on a reed mat within the cool, shadowed halls of a vast temple, the scent of lotus flowers and stale incense lingering in the air. You're not there for worship, not exactly. You're there to dream, you see. For the ancient Egyptians, dreams weren't just random neurological fireworks, they were messages. Divine communiques, sometimes even prescriptions for healing. It was a serious business, this dreaming. So serious that you probably wouldn't survive your first attempt at dream incubation without proper guidance, given all the, let's just say, preparations involved. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. As you settle in, tell me in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is for you. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You find yourself standing at the threshold of a grand temple, perhaps the Temple of Hathor at Dendera, or maybe the mortuary Temple of Hatshepsut. The air thick with an almost tangible quietude. The massive stone pillars seem to hum with forgotten energy, and the hieroglyphs carved into the walls dance in the flickering light of distant torches. For the ancient Egyptians, these weren't just impressive buildings, they were liminal spaces, thresholds between the earthly and the divine, and it was here, in designated sanctuaries, that the art of dream incubation flourished. You see, they didn't just have dreams. They actively sought them out, believing that if you prepared yourself correctly, the gods would speak to you in your sleep, offering guidance, revealing cures, or even foretelling the future. Think of it less like a modern sleep study and more like a sacred slumber party with deities as your special guests. The idea was simple enough on the surface. You'd come to the temple, perform certain rituals, and then sleep in a designated sacred space, hoping for a significant dream. But the execution, well, that was where things got interesting. You wouldn't just waltz in and flop down. Oh no, first there would be purifications, lots of them. Imagine ritually washing yourself with water drawn from a sacred well, perhaps even being purified with incense smoke, shedding the grime and worries of the mundane world. It was all about creating a clean slate, both physically and spiritually. To invite divine communication, this wasn't just about good hygiene. It was about spiritual receptivity. Historians still argue whether these purification rites were purely symbolic or if there was a pragmatic element, perhaps related to promoting a more restful, dream-conducive state. Being who wants to receive divine wisdom when you're itching from a day's work in the fields. It wasn't just physical cleanliness. You were expected to cleanse your mind as well. Imagine spending days, sometimes even weeks, in quiet contemplation, fasting, praying, and meditating within the temple precincts. You'd probably be humming ancient hymns, repeating sacred incantations, filling your thoughts with the divine. It was a total sensory and spiritual immersion, designed to prime your mind for the messages to come. This wasn't a quick fix for insomnia. It was a profound spiritual quest. The goal was to reach a state of heightened awareness even in sleep, where the veil between worlds thinned, allowing the gods to whisper their secrets directly into your subconscious. You were, in essence, tuning your spiritual antenna to the right divine frequency. And if you didn't, well, you might just get static, or worse, a visit from a less than benevolent dream entity. Good luck explaining that to the priests. Once your mind and body were suitably purified, you'd be led to the abaddon, a sacred sleeping chamber within the temple. Imagine it a small, secluded room, dimly lit by oil lamps, perhaps with a single humble bed or a mat laid out on the cool stone floor. It wouldn't be plush or luxurious. Comfort wasn't the primary goal. Divine connection was. The air would be heavy with the scent of sacred oils and dried herbs. Maybe a mix of frankincense, myrrh, and maybe even some sleepy time herbs like poppy or mandrake, though historians still argue whether these were used for their psychoactive properties or purely symbolic ones. You'd lie there, listening to the distant sounds of the temple, the gentle rustle of palm fronds outside, perhaps the faint chanting of priests in another part of the complex. This wasn't just a bedroom. It was a conduit, a place where the veil between the waking world and the dream world was thinnest. The purpose of these dedicated temple spaces for dream incubation was to create an optimal environment, both physically and spiritually, for receiving divine messages. It wasn't like just falling asleep anywhere. The Egyptians believed the sanctity of the temple itself imbued the space with special power. Think of it like trying to get good cell phone reception. You wouldn't stand in a lead-lined bunker, would you? Similarly, to get a clear signal from the gods, you needed to be in a place specifically designed for that purpose. These abatons were considered incredibly potent, almost like spiritual battery charges for your soul, and for a culture that believes so profoundly in the afterlife and the influence of the gods on daily life. Ensuring a good connection was paramount. You wouldn't want to miss a divine memo about, say, an upcoming flood or the best cure for your aching back. Before you finally drifted off, there would be specific rituals to perform. These weren't just bedtime stories, they were invocations, prayers, and specific gestures designed to invite the god or goddess associated with the temple into your dreams. You might be instructed to gaze at a statue of the deity, focusing intensely on their image, imprinting it onto your mind's eye, or perhaps you chant a specific mantra, repeating the deity's name or a sacred phrase over and over, lulling yourself into a trance-like state. It was all about setting the intention, making your desire for a divine message known, and preparing your subconscious to receive it. Imagine trying to fall asleep while actively trying to think about what you want to dream about. It sounds counterintuitive, doesn't it? Yet, for the Egyptians, this focused intention was key. It was less about trying hard and more about letting go into a state of receptive calm. If you tried too hard, you might just end up dreaming about your grocery list instead of divine prophecies. One of the more quirky tidbits about these rituals involves the offerings. Before you lay down, you might leave a small offering for the deity, perhaps a small cake, a vase of beer, or a bundle of flowers. It was a gesture of respect, a polite thank you in advance for the dream they were about to send. Think of it as leaving out cookies for Santa, but for a much more profound purpose. These offerings weren't just arbitrary gifts, they were part the sacred contract, reinforcing your desire for divine favor. And honestly, if you were a god, wouldn't you be more inclined to send a helpful dream to someone who brought snacks? It's just good manners. The atmosphere would be hushed. Perhaps only the gentle breathing of other supplicants in nearby chambers, or the soft sounds of nocturnal temple life. Maybe a stray cat padding silently through the outer courtyards. This deliberate quiet, combined with the lingering scent of incense and the knowledge of the temple's sacred power, was all part of the immersive experience. It was designed to lull you into a deep, receptive sleep, a state where your ordinary consciousness receded and your deeper self could connect with the divine. It sounds quite peaceful, doesn't it? A far cry from trying to fall asleep while doom scrolling on your phone. Though I imagine they had their own versions of anxieties that kept them awake. Like, did I leave enough offerings for Cyrus? Or will I just dream about my donkey running away again? But the physical space in your mind prepared. The final step before drifting off involved specific invocations and preparatory rites. These weren't just vague wishes for a good night's rest. They were targeted pleas to specific deities. Imagine, if you will, repeating sacred phrases, perhaps an ancient Egyptian equivalent of "now I lay me down to sleep. I pray the Lord my soul to keep," but with much more elaborate intentions. You might invoke bees, the dwarfish protector god. Paus holds childbirth and sleep, known for warding off nightmares and evil spirits. Or perhaps Tauret, the hippopotamus goddess, protector of pregnant women and sleep. Ensuring a safe and fertile night, you'd probably chant these names, focusing your intention, allowing the rhythm of the words to lull you into a state of deep relaxation. This wasn't just about hoping for a dream. It was about actively inviting the divine into your unconscious. These invocations were often accompanied by specific actions. You might recline in a particular posture, perhaps on your left side, or with your head resting on a specific type of headrest, carved to elevate your head and perhaps promote certain types of visions. Some scholars suggest that these headrests, often made of stone or wood, might have had a practical purpose in keeping one cool in the Egyptian heat, but they also held symbolic significance, connecting the sleeper to the earth and the underworld. Others proposed that the discomfort might have actually aided in dream recall, ensuring you didn't fall into too deep a sleep where memories vanish. It's a bit like trying to remember your dreams after sleeping on a lumpy couch. Sometimes the slight discomfort keeps you closer to the surface. One mainstream historical fact to consider here is the prevalence of dream stelae. These were stone tablets inscribed with prayers and images, often depicting individuals seeking dreams from deities or recording successful dream experiences. You find these in temple courtyards or even within personal shrines, serving as tangible evidence of the Egyptians' deep faith in the power of divine dreams. They acted as a sort of public record, a testament to the efficacy of the dream incubation process. Imagine if we had dreamed stelae today. I dreamed I found my car. Keys probably wouldn't be as popular, would it? A quirky tidbit is the use of specific plants or unguents. While direct evidence is scarce and debated, some theories suggest that certain Egyptians might have ingested or anointed themselves with substances believed to enhance dream experiences. This could range from mild sedatives like poppy extracts to more symbolic herbs. Historians still argue whether the effects were primarily pharmacological or psychosomatic, driven by belief in ritual expectation. Was it the plant or the belief in the plant that opened the doors to the dream world? It's a fascinating chicken or egg question when you're talking about ancient spiritual practices. You'd settle down, enveloped by the quietude, the scent of sacred oils, and the knowledge that you were participating in a tradition thousands of years old. The gentle breeze rustling through the temple courtyards, the distant calls of night creatures, the almost palpable sense of antiquity, all these elements combined to create an atmosphere conducive to a unique kind of slumber. It wasn't just about falling asleep. It was about entering a sacred state of consciousness, a journey into the liminal space where the human and the divine intersected. And as you drift off, you carry the intention of your quest with you, a silent prayer echoing in your subconscious, waiting for the gods to answer. It's a far cry from counting sheep, isn't it? More like counting deities. You finally succumb to the ancient silence, the subtle sense, and the profound intention. The dreams come, perhaps not always as clear as a whispered word, but as vivid, sometimes perplexing imagery. And this is where the dream interpreters came in. These weren't just fortune tellers on a street corner. They were highly respected priests and scribes, often attached directly to the temples. They were the ancient Egyptian equivalent of psychologists, theologians, and detectives all rolled into one, tasked with deciphering the often cryptic messages from the divine. Imagine explaining your latest fever dream to someone who holds the key to its cosmic significance. Suddenly, that dream about trying to find your ancient Egyptian sandals becomes a profound spiritual quest. Their role was crucial. A dream, however vivid, was useless without proper interpretation. It was believed that the gods communicated in a symbolic language, and it took a trained eye and ear to understand it. These interpreters weren't just guessing. They relied on years of accumulated knowledge, documented precedents, and an intuitive understanding of the divine mind. They were masters of metaphor, adept at seeing the hidden connections between a dreamt image and its real-world implication. If you dreamed of a crocodile, for instance, it wasn't necessarily a warning about a literal reptile attack. It might symbolize danger, cunning, or even the god Sobek. It all depended on the context of the dream and the specific circumstances of the dreamer. It sounds a bit like trying to solve a spiritual jigsaw puzzle, doesn't it? A mainstream historical fact here is the existence of dream books or dream manuals. These were papyrus scrolls containing lists of common dream symbols and their interpretations, often with both good and bad omens. The most famous example is the Chester Beatty Papyrus 3, a fascinating document that provides insights into what the Egyptians considered auspicious or ominous dream content. It's like an ancient dream dictionary for dummies, but with far higher stakes. These books allowed interpreters to cross-reference symbols, providing a standardized framework for their readings. Though personal insight and divine inspiration were still highly valued, think of it as a helpful guide, not a definitive answer. Quirky tidbit is that some dream interpretations could be incredibly specific, even mundane. Dreaming of eating bread might mean prosperity, but dreaming of eating white bread versus black bread could have entirely different connotations. Dreaming looking out a window might signify freedom, or perhaps just an urge to go outside. The nuance was everything, and sometimes the interpretation wasn't about what would happen, but what you should do. A dream of illness might not mean you'll get sick, but that you need to visit the temple's healing shrine. It was less about predicting the future and more about prescribing action. You wouldn't want to misinterpret a dream about, say, a talking donkey telling you to build a pyramid. that could get expensive. Historians still argue whether the interpretations were purely for the benefit of the individual, or if they sometimes served to reinforce the authority of the priesthood and the temple. After all, if the gods are speaking through the priests, that gives the priests a lot of sway, doesn't it? Regardless, the dream interpreter's skill was paramount. Their ability to translate the ethereal language of dreams into practical advice made them invaluable figures in ancient Egyptian society. You trusted them with your deepest fears and highest hopes, knowing that their words could literally shape your destiny. So, when you woke from your temple slumber, bleary-eyed but full of potential revelations, their wise counsel was the next crucial step in your ancient dream journey. So, you've emerged from your sacred slumber, and the wise interpreter sits before you, patiently awaiting your recounting. You begin to describe the symbolism in your dreamscapes, the vivid, often bizarre imagery that painted your nocturnal journey for the ancient Egyptians. Every element in a dream held potential meaning, a piece of a larger puzzle. It wasn't about random chaos, it was about a carefully constructed divine language. Imagine recounting a dream where you're suddenly a scarab beetle pushing a giant ball of dung across the desert. To us, perhaps a sign you need more fiber. To an Egyptian interpreter, profound symbol of rebirth, resurrection, and the sun. Gadra's daily journey across the sky. See, everything had layers. The most common dream symbols were deeply intertwined with Egyptian mythology, daily life, and the natural world around them. Water, for instance, could signify purification, fertility, or the life-giving Nile, but also danger if it was turbulent or muddy. Animals were particularly potent. A lion might symbolize power and protection, perhaps indicating the goddess Sekhmet. A snake, always a tricky one, could represent healing or danger, depending on its context within the dream. And the ubiquitous crocodile, a creature they knew well, often signaled aggression or a hidden threat. You really had to pay attention to the details. Was the crocodile just chilling in the water, or was it actively chasing you? Big difference, spiritually speaking. A mainstream historical fact is that many of these dream symbols were consistent across various dream texts and records, suggesting a widely understood symbolic vocabulary. While individual interpretations might vary slightly, the core meanings remained stable. This allowed for a shared understanding of dream language, even if the nuances required an expert. It's almost like they had a universal dream alphabet, though thankfully without all the confusing silent letters. This consistency also made it easier for the average Egyptian to grasp the general meaning of common dream occurrences, even if they still needed priestly guidance for complex visions. A quirky tidbit involves the idea of inverse symbolism. Sometimes, a dream might mean the exact opposite of what it seemed on the surface. Dreaming of death, for example, could signify a long life. Dreaming of sorrow might portend joy. This added an extra layer of complexity to the interpreter's job, requiring them to discern when to take a dream literally and when to flip its meaning. It's a bit like a cosmic game of reverse charades, where what you see isn't always what you get. Imagine dreaming of losing all your teeth. In some cultures, a sign of bad luck. In ancient Egypt, depending on context, it could mean you were about to acquire something new, or maybe just that you needed to brush more. Historians still argue whether this inverse symbolism was a common feature or a rare, specific type of dream message. The dream interpreter, for hearing your tale, would then weave these symbolic threads together, connecting them to your personal circumstances and the deity you had invoked. The goal wasn't just to tell you what your dream meant, but what you should do as a result. Did the dream offer a warning, a blessing, a command? The interpretation often came with practical advice, sometimes even a ritual to perform or an offering to make, solidifying the dream's impact on your waking life. It was a holistic approach to understanding the messages of the night, ensuring that your temple slumber wasn't just a fascinating experience, but a transformative one. And you thought your dreams were complicated. Beyond seeking guidance or prophecy, one of the most profound reasons individuals sought divine dreams in ancient Egyptian temples was for healing. Imagine you've been suffering from a persistent illness, a nagging ache, or even a deep spiritual malaise. Instead of heading to a modern clinic, you journeyed to a temple dedicated to a healing deity, like Imhotep, the deified architect and physician, or Serapis, a Greco-Egyptian god often associated with healing and the afterlife. You wouldn't just be hoping for a good night's sleep. You'd be actively seeking a divine prescription, a direct intervention from the gods to restore your well-being. It was a testament to their belief that illness wasn't merely a physical ailment, but often a spiritual imbalance requiring divine remedy. The process for healing dreams would often be even more meticulous. You might spend days in the temple, not just purifying your body, but cleansing your spirit through prayer, confession, and specific rituals designed to appease any offended deities or spirits that might be causing your ailment. You might be asked to bathe in sacred waters or apply special unguents, all designed to prepare you as a vessel for divine healing energy. It's a bit like a spiritual detox before your cosmic doctor. As appointment, this dedication highlights a mainstream historical fact: the close intertwining of medicine and religion in ancient Egypt. Many physicians were also priests, and temples often served as centers for both medical treatment and spiritual healing. They didn't see a strict division between body and soul, one affected the other. A quirky tidbit related to healing dreams is the idea of symbolic surgery. Sometimes, dreamers would experience a dream where a deity or their animal manifestation would appear and perform a symbolic operation or apply a special medicine. Upon waking, the dreamer would feel immediate relief or a gradual improvement in their condition. This wasn't actual surgery, of course, but the powerful psychological and spiritual impact of such a vivid dream could genuinely trigger the body's own healing mechanisms. It's the ultimate placebo effect, powered by divine belief. Historians still argue whether the perceived cures were purely psychosomatic, or if the priest subtly administered herbal remedies or other treatments, while the supplicant was in a trance-like state, attributing the effect to divine intervention. Either way, the patient felt better. You'd recline in the temple's healing abaton, perhaps surrounded by images of the specific healing god you invoked, or by hieroglyphs depicting scenes of recovery and well-being. The air would be filled with calming incantations, possibly even the scent of medicinal herbs being burned as incense. The goal was to create an environment of profound peace and expectation, allowing your mind to relax and become receptive to the healing messages. You drift off, perhaps with a quiet prayer for relief on your lips, hoping for a dream that would show you the way back to health or simply deliver it directly. Imagine the relief, the sheer profound joy of waking from such a dream feeling, your symptoms alleviated, or perhaps having received a clear vision of an herb or a ritual that would bring about your cure. For people with limited modern medicine, these divine interventions were vital, offering hope and sometimes tangible relief where human remedies fell short. It wasn't just wishful thinking, it was a deeply ingrained spiritual practice, a testament to their enduring faith in the interconnectedness of the divine and the earthly, even in the most vulnerable moments of illness, and all you had to do was show up, purify yourself, and have a good nap. Sounds like a decent deal, wouldn't you say? Sometimes the dreams weren't about personal healing or guidance, but held far grander implications. They were prophetic dreams, visions that foretold future events. And on a national scale, imagine a pharaoh or a high priest lying down in a temple abaton seeking divine counsel on matters of state and impending famine, military campaign, or the succession of the throne. Their dreams weren't just personal narratives. They were considered direct messages from the gods, shaping the destiny of an entire civilization. It's a bit like getting a top-secret memo from the cosmos, delivered directly to your sleeping brain. One of the most famous mainstream historical examples of a prophetic dream comes from the biblical story of Joseph interpreting the pharaohs. Dreams of 7 fat cows and 7 lean cows foretelling years of abundance followed by famine. While this narrative is from Hebrew scriptures, it reflects a widely held ancient Near Eastern belief in the power of prophetic dreams, a belief certainly shared by the Egyptians. Pharaoh himself was considered divine, a living god, so his dreams were especially potent and held immense weight. If Pharaoh dreamed of locusts, you can bet the granaries were suddenly a lot more worried. A quirky tidbit is that even ordinary Egyptians might experience what they perceived as prophetic dreams, though perhaps on a smaller, more personal scale. A farmer might dream of a specific crop failing, prompting him to change his planting strategy. A craftsman might dream of a new tool design that would revolutionize his work. These smaller prophecies, though not recorded in grand temple inscriptions, nonetheless shaped individual lives and reinforced the general belief in the dream world as a source of future knowledge. It wasn't always about saving the kingdom, sometimes it was about saving your harvest. Historians still argue about the extent to which these personal prophecies influence daily decision-making versus simply confirming existing anxieties or hopes. The interpretation of these grand prophetic dreams was naturally entrusted to the most skilled and trusted dream interpreters, those intimately familiar with the divine will and the nuances of statecraft. Their counsel could mean the difference between prosperity and famine, peace and war. The responsibility must have been immense. Imagine the pressure of telling a pharaoh that his dream meant prepare for 7 years of snack shortages. You'd want to be absolutely sure of your interpretation. When these prophetic dreams occurred within the temple context, the sacred space was believed to enhance the clarity and accuracy of the message. The temple acted as a powerful spiritual amplifier, ensuring the divine signal was received loud and clear. The rituals preceding the sleep, the specific invocations to gods of prophecy like Thoth, the god of wisdom and writing, or Isis, known for her magical knowledge, were all designed to fine-tune the reception. You weren't just catching snippets. You were getting the whole divine broadcast, hopefully in high definition. And upon waking, the dream wouldn't just be discussed and acted upon. It might even be commemorated. Powerful prophetic dreams, especially those related to the pharaoh or significant national events, might be inscribed on temple walls or stelae, serving as a permanent record of divine intervention and a testament to the pharaoh's sacred connection to the gods. It was a way of saying, look, the gods told me this, so you know it's true. It reinforced the legitimacy of the ruler and the power of the divine, ensuring that the messages of the night held sway in the light of day. To aid in the intricate process of dream interpretation, and perhaps to preserve centuries of accumulated wisdom, the ancient Egyptians compiled dream books and guides. These weren't exactly your modern self-help paperbacks. They were meticulously crafted papyrus scrolls, often belonging to temple libraries or individual scribes, acting as comprehensive compendiums of dream symbols and their established meanings. Imagine a vast database of dreams sorted by image, action, and outcome, all accessible to the initiated. It's like having the Rosetta Stone, but for your nocturnal wanderings. The most famous of these is the Chester Beatty Papyrus III, which offers a fascinating glimpse into the Egyptian dream world. This papyrus, dated to the 19th dynasty around 1200 BCE, lists over 100 dream scenarios, categorizing them as either good or bad. For example, dreaming of seeing yourself in a mirror was a good dream, interpreted as seeing a happy life. Dreaming of a large cat, good, as it meant a large harvest. Dreaming of drinking warm beer, however, that was a bad dream, signifying suffering. You can almost hear the sigh of relief or disappointment from the dreamer. This papyrus is a mainstream historical fact, providing invaluable insight into the system of oniric criticism. Of dream interpretation, a quirky tidbit about these dream books is that they sometimes included specific rituals to perform. If you had a particularly bad dream, for instance, if you dreamed of something ominous, the papyrus might prescribe chanting a specific incantation or placing a certain amulet on your bed before morning. It was like a spiritual undo button for a nightmare. This suggests a proactive approach to dreams, not just passively receiving messages but actively trying to mitigate negative ones. Oh, you dreamed of a snake? Don't worry, just chant this little spell and you'll be fine by sunrise. It sounds almost too easy, doesn't it? Historians still argue whether these counter-rituals were genuinely believed to alter the dream's outcome or simply offered psychological comfort to the anxious dreamer. These dream guides weren't just simple lists, they reflected a sophisticated understanding of human psychology and the symbolic nature of the unconscious mind. The interpretations often took into account the context of the dream and the social status of the dreamer. A dream that might be auspicious for a pharaoh could mean something entirely different for a common farmer. It wasn't a one-size-fits-all approach. Imagine the sheer volume of knowledge an interpreter had to hold in their head, cross-referencing symbols, rituals, and individual circumstances, all while maintaining that serene, knowing priestly demeanor. For the Egyptians, these dream books were vital tools for navigating a world heavily influenced by divine will. They provided a framework for understanding the often confusing messages of the night, Ensuring that no divine communication went unheeded, they were consulted by priests, scribes, and even ordinary people seeking to understand their nocturnal experiences. It was less about predicting the future with certainty and more about providing a guide for interpreting divine intent and responding appropriately. So, the next time you have a bizarre dream, just imagine an ancient Egyptian priest leafing through a papyrus scroll, trying to figure out if your dream about flying ducks means you're about to receive a promotion or just need to lay off the late-night lentils, not knowing the importance of positive, clear dreams and the potential for unsettling ones. The ancient Egyptians also relied heavily on amulets for sweet dreams. These weren't just pretty trinkets. They were tangible objects imbued with magical power, designed to protect the sleeper from malevolent spirits, ward off nightmares, and invite benevolent dream experiences. Imagine wearing a tiny charm, a piece of carved stone or faience that was believed to actively filter your dreams, letting in only the good stuff and sending the bad stuff packing. It's like an ancient dream catcher, but with a bit more spiritual horsepower. These amulets came in various forms, often depicting specific deities or symbols associated with protection and sleep. You might wear an amulet of bees, the jovial dwarf god, whose grotesque yet benevolent image was believed to scare away evil entities that sought to be your rest. Or perhaps an amulet of Tauret, the pregnant hippopotamus goddess, who protected mothers and children during childbirth and, by extension, guarded the vulnerable sleeper. These were placed under pillows, worn as necklaces, or even sewn into linen bandages for mummies, ensuring peaceful slumber even in the afterlife. It was a serious matter, protecting one's sleep. A mainstream historical fact is the widespread use of these amulets in all aspects of Egyptian life, from birth to death, and certainly for sleep. Archaeological digs regularly unearth vast numbers. These small, personal charms indicating their ubiquity across all social classes. They weren't just for the pharaohs. Even the humblest farmer would have owned at least one protective amulet. This highlights the deep integration of magic and superstition into their daily lives, including their nocturnal routines. You wouldn't want to go to bed without your magical night light, would you? A quirky tidbit is the use of specific materials for these amulets, each with its own symbolic meaning. Lapis lazuli, with its deep blue color, was associated with the heavens and divine protection. Green jasper symbolized growth and regeneration. Carnelian, a red-orange stone, was linked to vitality and the protective power of the sun. The material itself was believed to enhance the amulet's efficacy, adding another layer of magical potency. It wasn't just what the amulet depicted, but what it was made of that counted. So, if you had a dream where you were being chased by a giant snake, your carnelian bee's amulet was supposed to jump into action, effectively becoming your spiritual bodyguard. Historians still argue whether the effectiveness of these amulets was purely psychological, or if the Egyptians believed in a more literal active magical force at play. You'd settle into your sleeping place, perhaps in your modest home or within a temple precinct, knowing that these little guardians were watching over you. The weight of the amulet around your neck or tucked beneath your head would provide a tangible sense of security, allowing you to relax more fully into the embrace of sleep. It was a comforting thought, wasn't it, to know that even in the vulnerability of slumber, you were safeguarded by ancient magic. It was far more comforting than, say, checking your phone one last time before bed and accidentally reading some unsettling news. Imagine the stress they saved themselves. As you drift deeper into that ancient Egyptian sleep, a fascinating concept emerges from the mists of the unconscious, the belief in the night journeys of the soul. For the Egyptians, sleep wasn't just a period of inactivity, it was a time when your BA, often translated as soul or personality, could leave your body and embark on its own adventures. Imagine your very essence, your individual spirit, detaching from your physical form and soaring through the night sky, visiting distant lands, encountering deities, or even communing with the deceased. It was the ultimate astral projection, a nightly spiritual excursion. This concept is a mainstream historical fact, deeply embedded in Egyptian funerary beliefs and texts like the Book of the Dead. The Ba was often depicted as a human-headed bird, symbolizing its ability to fly freely between the earthly realm and the divine. While the body rested, vulnerable and still, the Ba was dynamic, capable of experiencing things beyond the physical limitations of the waking world. It was a remarkable belief, suggesting that even in slumber you were still an active participant. In the greater cosmos, it makes your average dream about being late for work seem rather mundane, doesn't it? A quirky tidbit related to this is the elaborate preparation for the bus journey. Especially for the deceased, tombs were often decorated. Maps and spells from the Book of the Dead to guide the boss safely through the underworld. And back to the body. This wasn't just for the afterlife. It reflected the dangers and possibilities of the bus nightly excursions even for the living. Imagine needing a spiritual GPS just to make sure your soul didn't get lost on its nightly wanderings. Historians still argue about the exact distinction between these conscious dream experiences and the believed automatic nightly departure of the Ba for all individuals. Was every dream a Ba journey, or only the most vivid ones? You'd lie there, your body still and quiet, while your Ba might be soaring over the vast sands of the desert, perhaps encountering the majestic god Ra as he traversed the sky in his solar bark, or perhaps visiting the tranquil field of reeds. These were not just passive observations. These journeys could be interactive, providing unique perspectives and divine insights that were then brought back to the waking mind. It was believed that what your Ba experienced on these journeys could directly influence your dreams, enriching them with profound meaning and spiritual encounters. The purpose of these journeys was not just entertainment. They served a vital spiritual function for the living. They could be a source of direct divine revelation, offering guidance or foretelling events for the deceased. They were crucial for navigating the afterlife and ensuring a successful resurrection. The safety of the Ba during its nightly travels was paramount, which is why protective amulets and rituals were so important. You wouldn't want your Ba to bump into any unpleasant underworld deities on its way back, would you? So, as you settled into your ancient sleep, you weren't just closing your eyes. You were preparing your very soul for an epic adventure. It was a profound connection to the cosmos, a reaffirmation that even in rest, the human spirit was an active, exploring entity, traversing realms unseen by the waking eye. It makes you wonder what your Ba is up to right now, doesn't it? Perhaps it's off exploring a distant galaxy, or maybe it's just trying to find that one sock that always goes missing in the laundry. As your mind delves deeper into the ancient Egyptian night, we arrive at the profound connection between the realm of dreams and the enigmatic god Osiris. He was not just the god of the afterlife, resurrection, and the underworld. He was also intimately linked with the concept of dreams as portals to spiritual understanding, particularly regarding mortality and rebirth. Imagine drifting off to sleep, knowing that the very fabric of your dreams might be woven from the cosmic threads of Osiris's domain, offering glimpses into the mysteries of existence and beyond. Osiris' story, a mainstream historical fact, is one of death and resurrection, famously dismembered by his jealous brother Set and then reassembled and brought back to life by his devoted wife Isis. This narrative made him the ultimate symbol of cyclical renewal, the flooding of the Nile, the sprouting of crops, and, crucially, the promise of life after death. Because dreams were seen as a liminal state, a temporary death or journey from the body, they naturally fell under Osiris's purview. Dreaming of Osiris, or within a space dedicated to him, was believed to grant insights into the journey of the soul, the mysteries of the underworld, and the possibility of rebirth. It was less about predicting next week's weather and more about understanding your eternal destiny. A quirky tidbit is the concept of Osiris beds found in some tombs. These were small, bed-shaped containers, sometimes filled with earth and planted with barley, which would sprout and grow. This growth symbolized the resurrection of Osiris and, by extension, the deceased's own rebirth. Though these weren't for sleeping, they vividly illustrate the pervasive connection between Osiris, sleep-like states, and the promise of new life. Imagine your ancient Egyptian neighbor's reaction if you started sprouting barley in your bed. After a particularly vivid dream, historians still argue whether the Osiris bed's ritual was a literal belief in divine growth, or a symbolic representation to aid the transition to the afterlife. When individuals saw dreams within an Assyrian temple or one closely associated with the underworld and rebirth, their intentions were often geared towards understanding death, their own eventual journey, or communicating with deceased loved ones. The atmosphere would be particularly solemn, filled with reflections on life's ephemeral nature and the enduring hope of resurrection. You might offer specific prayers to Osiris requesting guidance for navigating the afterlife, or seeking reassurance about the fate of your ancestors. The dreams received in such places might be rich with imagery of the underworld, the weighing of the heart ceremony, encounters with various deities of the dead, or even glimpses of the field of reeds, the blissful Egyptian paradise. These weren't necessarily frightening nightmares. They were often seen as preparatory visions, preparing the soul for its ultimate journey. It was a unique form of spiritual counseling, delivered directly by the divine, easing anxieties about the unknown. So, as you lay there, enveloped by the sacred darkness, the presence of Osiris would be almost palpable. His silent promise of rebirth, his gentle guidance through the mysteries of existence, would fill your dreamscapes, offering comfort and understanding. It was a profound reminder that even in sleep, and even in death, there was always the possibility of renewal, a continuous cycle of ending and beginning. It truly gives sleeping with the fishes a whole new, much more profound meaning, doesn't it? As you continue to float in the currents of ancient Egyptian sleep, you begin to appreciate a subtle but profound concept for them, the often blurred lines between dreaming and waking life. For the ancient Egyptians, dreams weren't simply random firings of the brain. They were another form of reality, parallel existence where the rules of the waking world might bend or break. Imagine living in a world where your most vivid dream could hold as much or even more truth and significance than your daily chores. It certainly adds a layer of mystical intrigue to your morning commute, doesn't it? This blurring of lines is a mainstream historical fact evident in countless Egyptian texts and beliefs. Prophetic dreams were acted upon, healing dreams were believed to cure ailments, and the journeys of the Ba in sleep were considered as real as any physical journey. The Egyptians didn't generally dismiss dreams as mere fantasy. They treated them as genuine experiences within a different dimension of reality. It was less about it was just a dream and more about it was a dream and therefore it was real. This deep conviction shaped their decisions, their rituals, and their entire worldview. A quirky tidbit is the idea that sometimes individuals would record their dreams on Astraka pottery shards, or limestone flakes or papyri, not just for interpretation, but simply as a record of a significant event. These weren't diaries of waking life. They were often dream diaries, considered important enough to meticulously document. Imagine keeping a dream journal not as a therapeutic exercise, but as a historical record of your interactions with the divine. It's almost like a daily spiritual news report, where the headlines are delivered by your subconscious. Historians still argue how much personal agency the Egyptians believed they had over their dreams. Could you actively choose what to dream about, or were you merely a recipient of divine messages? The very architecture of the dream incubation temples reflected this fluid boundary. The dim lighting, the silent spaces, the rhythmic chanting, all were designed to induce a state where the transition from wakefulness to sleep was seamless, almost imperceptible. You weren't supposed to fall asleep so much as to drift into another state of consciousness, one that allowed for direct communion with the divine. It was a conscious effort to dissolve the ordinary boundaries of perception, to step deliberately into the realm where dreams held sway. Even the language they used to describe dreams often paralleled descriptions of waking experiences. They didn't have a stark separation in their vocabulary. For dreaming versus experiencing reality, vision received in a dream was as real in its own context as seeing a friend in the marketplace. This linguistic nuance underscores their deeply integrated understanding of consciousness, where sleep offered not an escape from reality, but an expansion of it. So, as you rest in your simulated ancient Egyptian temple, consider this. What if the images and sensations you're experiencing now in this dreamlike state are just as real, just as valid as anything you'll encounter when you open your eyes in the morning? It's a comforting thought, perhaps, that even in the quietude of sleep, you are still profoundly connected to a vast and meaningful universe, where every whisper of your unconscious holds potential truth. It certainly makes me rethink hitting the snooze button. Now, let's consider something a little more practical, yet still steeped in ancient Egyptian mystique, the impact of sleep postures and visions. It wasn't just where you slept, but how you position your body that was believed to influence the type and clarity of your dreams. Imagine trying to achieve a divine vision while trying to get comfortable on a hard, unyielding surface, knowing that the specific angle of your head or the alignment of your limbs might make all the difference. It adds a whole new dimension to choosing which side of the bed to sleep on. While not as extensively documented as other aspects of dream incubation, to archaeological and textual hints about specific sleeping positions, a mainstream historical fact is the ubiquitous use of headdress in ancient Egypt. These weren't soft pillows, but often crescent-shaped pieces of wood, stone, or even ivory designed to elevate the head. While their primary function might have been to promote airflow and keep the sleeper cool in the hot climate, they also held symbolic significance, sometimes decorated with protective deities like bees or Taurid. It's plausible that specific headdresses were used in dream incubation, perhaps believed to align the sleeper's head with cosmic energies, or to facilitate the bus departure and return. Or, if your head is clearer, maybe your dreams are too. A quirky tidbit that historians still debate is whether certain physical discomforts or awkward positions were deliberately induced to promote a lighter, more vivid dream state. If you're not in a deep, oblivious sleep, you're more likely to remember your dreams, right? So, while modern sleep science focuses on maximizing comfort for deep sleep, the Egyptians might have sought a lighter, more permeable state of rest. Imagine deliberately sleeping on a slightly lumpy surface to ensure you catch every divine whisper. It's a bit like trying to tune into a faint radio signal by jiggling the antenna. It sounds counterintuitive for relaxation, doesn't it? But for gaining insights from the gods, perhaps a slight nudge was necessary. You might be instructed to lie on your back, eyes fixed on the distant ceiling of the temple, perhaps visualizing the god you wish to communicate with, or perhaps on your side in the classic Osiris position often seen in sarcophagi, symbolizing the journey into the afterlife and the potential for rebirth through dreams. The very act of adopting a specific posture would be a ritual in itself, a physical commitment to the sacred purpose of your slumber. It wasn't just about finding your comfortable spot. It was about finding your sacred spot. The idea was that the body, as a vessel for the soul, needed to be positioned in a way that optimized its connection to the divine currents. Relaxed body, yes, but perhaps one also subtly poised for spiritual reception. It's a testament to the holistic approach the Egyptians took to consciousness and spirituality, believing that every detail, from the air you breathe to the way you lay your head, contributed to the sacred experience of dreaming. And who knows, maybe that oddly shaped headdress actually did give them clearer visions. Or maybe it just gave them a stiff neck, which also made them remember the dream more vividly due to the discomfort. Having journeyed through the ancient Egyptian night from purification to prophetic visions, it's now time to consider the modern echoes of ancient sleep. We no longer build temples specifically for dream incubation, though I'm sure someone out there has tried it in their backyard shed. The underlying human fascination with dreams, their meaning, and their potential for guidance remains profoundly relevant. Imagine how many people today still grapple with unexplained dreams, seeking meaning in their nocturnal narratives, much like the Egyptians did millennia ago. It turns out some things are truly timeless. A mainstream historical fact is the continued presence of dream interpretation in many cultures and psychological practices worldwide. From Freudian psychoanalysis to Jungian archetypes, and even in some indigenous spiritual traditions, dreams are still seen as pathways to the unconscious mind, offering insights into our deepest fears, desires, and conflicts. While modern approaches often eschew divine intervention, the core idea of dreams as meaningful messages persists. We might swap a papyrus scroll for a psychologist's couch, but the quest for understanding remains the same. You might not be seeking a cure for a plague, but perhaps a solution for your persistent procrastination. A quirky tidbit is the recent resurgence of interest in lucid dreaming, where the dreamer becomes aware they are dreaming and can sometimes control the dream's narrative. This active engagement with the dream world, aiming to direct its course for self-exploration or problem-solving, shares a conceptual kinship with ancient Egyptian dream incubation. While the Egyptians sought divine control of the dream, and not necessarily control within the dream, both practices involve a deliberate engagement with the unconscious for a specific purpose. It's like the ancient Egyptians were trying to download an app from the gods, and modern lucid dreamers are trying to hack the dream operating system themselves. Historians still argue whether ancient Egyptians actively practiced what we would call lucid dreaming, or if their conscious dream experiences were simply vivid interactions with deities they believe to be present. You might find yourself, even tonight, pondering a peculiar dream you had last week. Was it just random noise, or was it your own personal bod taking a little journey, perhaps trying to tell you something? The impulse to find meaning in dreams seems hardwired into the human experience. Transcending time and culture, we still seek answers in our sleep, whether from our own subconscious or, as the ancients believed, from something far greater. Even our modern practices around sleep, like creating a sleep hygiene routine, dimming the lights, avoiding screens, creating a calm environment, echo the ancient Egyptian purification rites. While our goal is simply better rest, theirs was divine communication, yet the underlying principle of preparing the mind and body for a specific kind of nocturnal experience remains remarkably similar. We still crave that deep, restorative sleep, hoping it brings clarity or simply makes the next day more manageable. So, as you lay here, perhaps feeling the gentle hum of your modern fan, remember those ancient supplicants in their dimly lit temples. Their quest for divine dreams, their belief in the profound power of sleep, is not so far removed from our own quiet hopes for a peaceful night and the insights our unconscious minds might offer. It's a reminder that beneath all our technological advancements, some human experiences are truly universal. As our journey through the gentle art of dreaming in ancient Egyptian temples draws to a close, let's allow the final images and sensations to slowly fade, much like the last wisps of incense smoke dissolving into the vastness of the desert night. We've explored a world where sleep wasn't merely a biological necessity, but a profound spiritual undertaking, a bridge between the mortal and the divine. You've walked through dimly lit temple halls, inhaled the scent of sacred oils, and felt the weight of ancient intentions, the figures we've met, the meticulous priests, the enigmatic dream interpreters, the watchful deities like bees and tar now recede into the shadows of history. Concept of your bod taking flight, soaring through the cosmos, or Osiris offering his gentle hand through the mysteries of rebirth, becomes a soft whisper on the edge of consciousness. These aren't just historical facts, they are echoes of a deeply human yearning for connection, understanding, and peace. Even in the most vulnerable state of sleep, allow your breathing to deepen, becoming even soft and quiet. Imagine the cool, smooth stone beneath you, absorbing any lingering tension from your modern life. The faint rhythmic sound of a distant palm frond rustling, or perhaps the gentle lapping of the Nile, is all that remains of the ancient world. Let these sounds lull you, soothing any stray thoughts that might still cling to your mind. The wisdom of the Egyptians, that dreams are not just random but carry messages, whether from the divine or from your own deep self, is a comforting thought. It suggests that even in your most unconscious moments, there is meaning, there is guidance. There's a gentle hand reaching out from the depths of your own being. There's no need to interpret anything right now, no need to seek answers or solve riddles. Just allow the possibility to gently settle within you. The scent of ancient lotus and myrrh gives way to the familiar, comforting aroma of your own sleeping space, a place of safety and quietude. The knowledge that people, thousands years ago, sought solace and insight in their slumber can bring a quiet sense of solidarity, a shared human experience stretching across time. Part of that long, unbroken chain of dreamers. Feel yourself sinking deeper, feeling more relaxed with each slow, deliberate breath. The images, the stories, the strange and wonderful facts of ancient Egyptian sleep are now dissolving, leaving behind only a profound sense of tranquility. There are no more questions to answer, no more journeys to take tonight. Just a gentle invitation of deep, restorative rest. All the knowledge, all the mysteries can simply drift away for now. The light around you softens further, fading to an almost imperceptible glow. The ancient world, with its gods and its dreams, gently releases its hold, leaving you suspended in a peaceful, quiet void. Trust that your mind, even in sleep, continues its gentle, unseen work, and know that you are safe, secure, and ready for true rest.